We've been waiting for a little bit to get information on Nick Bolton's contract and Christian Fulton as well. Numbers are finally in, and we're going to talk about what it means for Kansas City and what it means for their salary cap today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom, for another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for always making Locked On Chiefs your first listen of the day. Don't forget, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. I am Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. You can go find my work over at Chiefs Corner. I'll have a breakdown of what I'm about to talk about here on Chiefs Corner in just a little bit. We're going to be getting into the numbers of Nick Bolton. We're going to talk about Christian Fulton. We're going to talk about where it leaves Kansas City when it comes to the salary cap for the rest of this season a little bit later in the show. Fulton details are going to be in the next segment, but we're going to start off talking about Nick Bolton. We've been waiting on this contract for over a week now at this point. Finally got the contract numbers. But today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Go check out our sponsors at Game Time. Lot to talk about when you start talking about salary cap. Where does it leave Kansas City? How does this contract work out for Nick Bolton? So it was reported that it was a 3-year deal for $45 million with $30 million fully guaranteed. That actually seems to be the case from the contract numbers that we have actually received at this point. He got a $12.75 million signing bonus. That's going to prorate across the cap for $4.25 million every single year in 2025, 2026, and 2027. He has a $2 million base salary in 2025 and a $250,000 workout bonus. His total salary cap number for 2025 is only $6.5 million. That is what he's going to cost Kansas City. And his contract, his salary for this year and his salary for next year is fully guaranteed. So he is fully guaranteed a full $30 million. Kind of surprised by that. One of the things that I was looking at with this contract was it was said that it was a full $30 million. It really is. That's a little bit different than what we talked about with Matt the other day, talking about, looking at the 3-year, $90 million deal that Derek Stingley got. Nick Bolton really got paid, and he got paid handsomely. He will be a $15 million a year linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that does put him in an interesting spot across the NFL when you start looking at the salary cap costs of the different positions. You look at the linebacker position, and at his APY of $15 million, he is now the number 5 paid linebacker in the NFL. With his APY. His guarantee comes in. It also puts him as the 5th highest paid linebacker in the NFL. You have Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, Tremaine Edmonds, and Zach Bond that are ahead of him. That is kind of where Nick Bolton is standing right now. It is essentially really the same kind of deal that Jamie Sherwood got in for New York in the Jets. This is surprising. This puts him where I didn't expect him to be. I thought that he was closer to maybe a $10, $11, $12 million player. They're going to be paying him $15. They do believe that he is one of the corner pieces of this defense and something that they have to continue building around in Kansas City. So it makes sense from that perspective. And the one thing that they needed him to do last year was to prove that he could play and not have an injury that was going to hamper him all season, because he had that in 2023, didn't have that in 2024, and they paid him $15 million a year to play for them going forward. I do think that this is an interesting contract. I am a little surprised that they're willing to go this high and give Bolton the contract that they gave him. The biggest key to me, though, is the cap number is only $6.5 million this year. That's a little bit lower than I was expecting. I was expecting 7 to 8. So that means that the signing bonus and the base salary was a little bit lower than I was expecting. But his cap number for the next 2 years after this is $19.25 million per year. The key for Bolton, though, is he's 25 this season. He will be 27 when this contract expires. Going into the next year, he will be 28. So he has an opportunity that if he plays well on this contract, he'll get the first 2 years of the contract and then re-sign a new contract after that and be under contract for a couple more years. At 27, 28 years old, this gives him a chance to get a third contract. He was a young enough player to come into the NFL to be able to do that. I think it's a good move for him. it's a good move for the Chiefs. They have their middle linebacker that they feel is a integral part of this defense. They have him for the next 3 seasons under this current contract. Whether or not he lives up to $15 million a year is a lot to be determined. There are deficiencies in his game that they will have to figure out how they're going to deal with it going forward. Specifically, how he covers the pass, because that's an issue. He doesn't he doesn't have the speed to drop into zones like you would want from the linebacker position. But again, the big thing that Ryan and I have always talked about when it comes to Nick Bolton, his instincts, his ability to read plays, gives him the ability to be a little bit slower and use his reaction speed to make up the difference. That is what's key in the NFL right now. That's what he is making his money on, is his ability to read the defense or read the offense and know exactly where the ball is going to go and be able to react to it before most of the offenses would expect him to react to it. That it's not his speed, it's his reaction time, and it's his knowledge of the game that is so imperative for the Chiefs and this defense going forward. I will say this has an opportunity to work against the Chiefs. $15 million a year for a linebacker that has deficiencies in covering the pass is going to be a problem. You can't really have him on this roster and not play him. So he is going to be having to play on a regular basis. And at $15 million a year, you better hope that he plays well and he's not injured. I don't foresee an injury situation or a possibility of him being injured consistently. That hasn't been him normally in his career. In 2023, it was an issue, but he had, generally speaking, has been able to play through most of the different things that he's been through in the NFL. So you have to hope that he is able to stay healthy and really they can get the money out of this contract. We will see if that ends up happening. When we get back, we're going to talk about Christian Fulton, the contract details we finally got for him and what it's going to mean a little bit later on the show for Kansas City and where they are salary cap wise after this. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and much, much more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent. If you need help with marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Post a job free and simple and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time Picks gives you curation, and it makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and much, much more. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So now we know where Nick Bolton sits. Again, his salary cap number for the season is about $6.5 million. The Chiefs were at about 27. That puts him closer to 20 after Nick Bolton's contract. So that's kind of where they sit. The other piece that was really sticking out on this in this regard is Christian Fulton. It was announced that he signed a couple of days ago. He agreed to a term with the deal, to terms with the Chiefs for 2 years, $20 million. Now we actually know how that contract is made out. At this point, it is a 2-year deal for $20 million. As I said, his cap number in 2025, which is the most important thing, is $7 million, and he's got a cap number of $13 million in 2026. He's got a $6 million signing bonus that prorates over at $3 million a year for the next 2 seasons. And he's got a base salary of 3.75, total guaranteed salary of his base salary plus the workout bonus of $250,000 to get to his cap number of 7. This is a deal that I think you have to feel great about. Christian Fulton at $7 million a year is a fantastic signing for Kansas City. So I do think that this is going to be one of those things that is going to work out well for Kansas City. Christian Fulton is a guy that I think really fits this defense, and I'm excited to see him with Trent McDuffie on this defense. It also gives you the ability to put Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie on the field, Jalen Watson and Christian Fulton on the field outside and put Trent McDuffie in the slot. That is going to be a huge key going into the 2025 season. Is Trent McDuffie can play where one of the places he plays best is inside. He gives you the ability to have a great nickel corner, and this is what you need from this defense. Trent McDuffie has got to take it to the next level. He's already showed that he's a great corner. He's been an All-Pro twice in his career already. Don't think that's going to change. I think he's going to be even better this next season going into year 4, because it's possible he doesn't get paid before the season starts. I would love to see him get a paycheck before the season starts, but if he doesn't, he's playing for a paycheck. They're going to pick up his 5th-year option. We talked about that yesterday with Matt. They will pick up his 5th-year option, so it's a question of, okay, what goes on and how does it go from here with the Chiefs corner group? Christian Fulton is going to step in and be a starter. It's going to be Trent McDuffie and Christian Fulton when they only have 2 corners on the field. You have to feel like those 2 guys give you a really good opportunity to be, I wouldn't say shut down, but very good against the pass in 2025. Then you add in a Jalen Watson, which kicks Trent McDuffie inside. I think you got to feel good about that. And then your backups are Najee Johnson, possibly Christian Roland Wallace, and Joshua Williams. I mean, you have 6 corners that you should feel good about going into the season. And I'm not talking like Roland Wallace should be a guy that could step in and be a starter right away, but he played well enough to show that he has the ability to play in the NFL. He will get better, and I'm curious to see what his growth is going forward in the season. But to get a starting corner for $7 million, I think is going to be a fantastic deal for Kansas City. I love this deal. 2 years, $20 million, I thought was probably about right when you're starting to look at the corner market. You have guys like Derek Stingley Jr. really getting a deal closer to $24 million a year in APY when you start looking at how it breaks out over the 5-year period. So $10 million a year for a guy that I don't think is a top number 1 type corner, but he is a very good 2 and can play outside. So I do think that this is a fantastic contract for Kansas City. It doesn't really play into what Trent McDuffie is going to make. This has no bearing in my mind what they think that Trent McDuffie is worth. I think that if you're looking at McDuffie's contract, kind of talked about this yesterday, it's going to be in line with Derek Stingley's contract. I would expect that Sauce Gardner is also they're also working on trying to get Sauce Gardner extended, which is also going to affect Trent McDuffie. But all of this plays into Kansas City having a stronger defense and being able to go into the draft basically to a point where they have a lot of their needs already taken care of. Now, you can argue left tackle isn't necessarily what you want, and I don't disagree with that, but you at least feel like you have a starter there. And you have another starter at corner, which was a big issue last season in Christian Fulton. So I think that that's an upgrade. You brought back Nick Bolton, which we already talked about, is in the middle of your defense. You have Chanel coming back. You have Tranquil there as well. I think that that's going to be a good linebacking core. The only real question you're going to have on the back end of the defense is possibly at free safety, but I think that they feel very good about the safeties they have. So now it leaves you in a position where you have to focus on the defensive line, defensive tackle, defensive end. They've got to get that figured out, but this gives them the ability to do that. It's going to be, I'm curious to see when we start talking about how much money they have left, and I'll get to that here in the next segment. I'm curious to see whether or not they're able to maybe make a deal with Charles Omenihu. He was on an $8 million, basically $8 million APY in Kansas City before. He didn't have a great season last year coming back from his injury. Wasn't able to play until November. So at that point, you would think that his market isn't probably what he's wanting. And obviously still being on the market at this point in the getting to where you're into the second tier free agency. And as Matt and I kind of talked about yesterday, almost really close to a third tier free agency with some of the names that are left on the board. It's really slim pickings as to who is still out there. And most of the teams at this point have spent the money that they're going to spend. So I don't think that Omenihu is going to be getting a big deal. So it's a question of, will he accept a deal that's going to give him the ability to go out and prove it? Coming back to Kansas City, chasing another Super Bowl in Kansas City, and having a chance to, to get a Super Bowl ring in Kansas City where he's actually on the field playing, as opposed to just a Super Bowl ring where he's on the sidelines because he's injured. I do think that all plays into what we're going to be looking at with the salary cap. And we'll get to that here in just a couple minutes. But looking at Christian Fulton's deal, this is a strong deal for Kansas City. I would have expected Fulton to get a little bit more, especially with the way the corner market's been paying players. I think he's a solid corner. I'm not going to say he's fantastic, but he's solid enough. In 2 years for $20 million with basically, let's see, he's got $5 million guaranteed next year. He got a $6 million signing bonus. And total guaranteed salary of $9 million. So he had $15 million guaranteed total. And you're looking at almost 15.5 guaranteed. Most of his deal is guaranteed at this point. You would imagine that he's going to end up being in Kansas City for both seasons on this deal. And that is a good thing for the Chiefs because he is a good player that can step in and give you a starter as a corner, which is very important. It takes one of their absolute needs off right now. It moves it down. Corner is still something that if somebody is right, drops at like 30 in the 30s, maybe you go that direction because you're not going to have a great choice of who you want at 30 if you stay there. And I don't think Kansas City is going to be staying there. But if you do, maybe there's a corner that you really like that can step in. And at that point, maybe Fulton becomes your third corner. There are worse things to have. And I think that would be a boon for this defense to have that many great corners on it. Would be something that would be a lot of fun to see. We will see how that works out. But when we get back, we're going to talk about where does this leave Kansas City with their salary cap? What does it look like going forward? And what does it kind of mean for the rest of the offseason as they prepare for the NFL draft?
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So the big question everybody has, where does this leave Kansas City? Where are they at cap-wise? What does it mean for 2025 and 2026 in the future? It's interesting because I would have thought that looking at this, that when you look at the Christian Fulton deal, a $7 million cap number in 2025, Nick Bolton is $6.5 million for a cap number in 2025. So you're looking at $13.5 million between those two players. And at this point, you still don't have the exact contract breakdowns for some players out there that have signed for the Chiefs. Juju Smith-Schuster still don't really have the details of Gardner Minshew or Jerry Tillery either. And Kareem Hunt, I believe, is going to be pretty much a vet min deal. There might be a little bit more, but essentially what's going to happen on his deal, and I kind of think Gardner Minshew is going to be in the same area, is going to be vet min because, as we talked about yesterday, Kansas City is probably only paying in vet min, and the Raiders are going to be paying him another $2 million. So the Chiefs will actually be paying a third of his contract, and the Raiders will be paying twice what Kansas City is. That's kind of funny. And Juju, I'd also imagine, is probably a vet min deal. The big thing with all those is if all those are vet min deals, you're looking at maybe taking up maybe another $500,000 against the salary cap in 2025 as it sits right now, because it's top 51 salaries, and everybody on the salary cap that is counting against it right now is above 960,000. So it's going to be anything that's over that 960,000 number. And you've got a couple of guys that are going to be, dropping off at the 960 number when you start talking about vet min, but you're only talking, a couple $100,000 that's going to be added to your salary cap for those contracts if they are the vet min type. Maybe 600, maybe 750,000 total. So you're really looking at a salary cap number for the Chiefs right now at about 15 million. I would say probably closer to maybe 14 million with all the players they've signed. And I have no idea. I haven't seen reported numbers on Jerry Tillery yet. I've been looking for that, still haven't seen it. So that's obviously going to bring it down a little bit more. So that gives you an idea as to where you're really looking. You're looking at about probably 14 million with Tillery. I would imagine he's going to get more than just vet min. So maybe if it's vet min, it's another 250. So I'd say it would take it almost exactly to 14 million between all the 4 veterans that we don't know. And then Tillery is anything above vet minimum would be additional salary cap that it's going to be coming off. Say they give him an extra $1 or $2 million, maybe that takes them down to 12. So where does that leave Kansas City going into the draft? I mean, you still have another signing. I believe I saw Marlon. Marlon, I'm trying to remember that. I'm trying to pronounce his name correctly, so I do apologize. Tui Pelotu is also coming back to Kansas City. Don't have the numbers on that. I definitely would think that that's a vet min deal. So again, not going to have a huge effect on Kansas City's salary cap, but it gives them another veteran that they can come in and have that at least gives them something to prepare for the NFL draft. When you start talking about the NFL draft and what it means for going forward, and you start looking at, okay, what is the cost that the Chiefs are going to need to keep open for the draft or for the rookie pool? Kansas City's got the 31st rookie pool. They will need $2.7 million for their salary cap. That is what it's going to cost them on top of what they've already got right now. So that looks like it should take you to about, I'd say 11, probably 10. So at that point, you're about $10 million in salary cap space. Figure 3 or 4 million you're going to eat up with the guys that are going to get added at the bottom, maybe even more than that, that are past the top 53, because you have, the top 53 plus you have any guys that are going to be injured. So Kansas City is getting close to where they're not going to have a ton of cap space. But the key here, and this is the bigger thing, the key is they don't have to be under the salary cap until September. So it doesn't really matter where they are right now, because they still have a huge ace in the hole if they can get a deal done with Trey Smith. If they can get a deal done with Trey Smith, his $23.4 million number probably comes down to 8 or 9. That frees up, $15 million in the salary cap. Now, maybe they front load Trey Smith's deal and it's a little bit different than most of the deals that they've done. And that could make some sense because that gives them the ability to have flexibility later on in his contract. But they could free up $15 million, and I don't expect that they're going to go out and spend it. But it is something that they can carry forward to 2026, which is going to be important because you start looking at Patrick Mahomes' contract in 2026, and he's got a salary cap number right now of $78 million. Chris Jones has a salary cap number of $45 million. Jawan Taylor has a salary cap number of $28 million, almost 27.5 actually. So when you're looking at all this, it's a question of, okay, we know what they have. It's probably about 10 after you take into account the draft class, maybe about 9 after you take in the draft class and the guys that they've signed. When you start looking at what it's going to cost them to bring in the rest of their players to the final 53, it's probably going to cost, I'd say, 4 or 5 million more, plus maybe a little bit more than that because you also have the practice squad players and you're going to have players in injured reserve. So you're going to have money that you have to get figured out. But for the time being, they're looking at less than $3 million needed for the salary cap. And that is something that they should be able to take into account and be in a good position going forward for 2025. And again, it comes down to, can they get a deal done with Trey Smith? Are they going to get to a point where they aren't able to get a deal done with Trey Smith, and then they have to be maybe looking for another move that they can use to maybe free up a little bit more space? They can't do anything with Mahomes. You can only restructure a contract once in a season. You could do something with Jawan Taylor, but it makes next year harder. So I don't know that they have a lot of areas that they could make a lot of salary cap space. So they kind of need to get a deal done with Trey Smith, but they have the ability to function throughout the season at this point if they don't. Obviously, the big caveat with all of this is, do they stay where they are in the draft? If they do, 2.7 is about what they'll need. If they move up, they'll need more. Is it going to be a ton more? No, but it's going to be more. I mean, if they moved up to a point where they're taking on right now, the first pick in the draft will be a 2.378, basically $2.4 million contract. If they were to move up to, let's say, top 20, it's only adding about 500,000, 450,000, somewhere in there. If they move up to 15, it's going to add another, basically, it's going to be about 800,000 on top of what they need. So it really is going to depend on where they need to get to in the first round. If they move up, they could also move back, which is going to lower the cost that they would need. So there's lots of different things that they can do. They have some picks. They can figure out what they need to do. But at this point, you look at their roster and you have to feel like they have filled out most of what they probably are going to do before the draft. They may have a couple of vet signings here and there. Maybe they're able to get a deal done with Charles Omenihu. If they get a deal done with Omenihu and it's not just mainly incentives, that means that I would think that means that they feel pretty good about getting a deal done with Trey Smith, because the only way you make that move with Omenihu is if you're going to be paying him $5, $6, $7, $8 million, whatever. That's going to take off what you have right now in the salary cap, and the only way to get money back is from Trey Smith. So at this point, you have to figure out, can you get a deal done with Trey Smith? Can you make it to where you're going to get him signed and he's going to be here long term, which will give you more money to be able a little bit more flexible going into the 2025 season. That is kind of the thought process as to where I think they are on the salary cap. I do think that it's something that they're pretty much set to where they've got most of the players they're going to add at this point. They could be bringing back, a guy like Mike Pennell. Omenihu wouldn't surprise me. But again, it's a question of what kind of deal is he going to be willing to take. I don't think they're going to be big spenders in free agency with what's left. I mean, there are players that maybe you could pay $3 or $4 million to. I don't see that Kansas City is going to be doing that unless they know that they have Trey Smith's deal pretty much done, because then that frees up money to be able to do that. But this is where they are right now. Nick Bolton signed, Christian Fulton signed. We know what their contracts are finally. We have an idea as to what they're going to cost for the next couple of seasons. I really like the Christian Fulton contract. I think Nick Bolton got paid a little bit more than probably should have. I love him as a player. I think that he is a definite necessity on this team, but $15 million makes him a top 5 linebacker in the NFL. I don't know that I would put him there with his lack of speed and his struggles in the pass game. So to me, love that he's in Kansas City. Don't like the price, but you pay him what he's willing to play for. And I think he probably would have gotten that, maybe a little bit more in free agency. I do think somebody would have paid him just because of the type of player he is. And generally free agents like that get paid in the NFL. Let me know what you think about the salary cap. Let me know what you think about the Chiefs. And as they prepare for the NFL draft, we will be back tomorrow to talk more about this team, getting them ready for the NFL draft in just a little over a month. I can't believe it's going to be here in just a little over a month at this point. Really looking forward to it. Thank you for listening today, and we will talk to you tomorrow.